Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to talk about finding nth roots. And remember, in the previous lessons, we looked at square roots and we also looked at cube roots. So if you understand the two lessons that dealt with square roots and also cube roots, then this should not be uh, difficult. This should be very easy for you. So just like we found square roots and we found cube roots, then we can also talk about finding other roots. So in other words, we can find fourth roots. Okay, so it'll look like this. It'll look something like this. Fourth root. Remember the 4 here is called the index. So let me just remind you about some terminology from previous lessons. So your index here is 4. Okay. We can find fifth roots. We can find sixth roots and so on. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson. So in the previous lesson, we looked at cube roots, and the one before that, we looked at square roots. So let me just remind you about something though. If I have, so this is a quick review. If I have the square root of, let's say, 81, I know that that's equal to 9, right? And I know that's equal to 9 since 9 squared, 9 times 9 is 81. And the same thing for cube root. I know that the cube root of 8 is equal to 2 because 2 cubed is equal to the radicand, which is 8. So when I am squaring 9 and I say that's equal to 81, then the reverse would be the square root of 81 is 9. So the reverse operation of squaring is square root. The reverse operation of cubing is cube root. Okay? And so if we extend this further, for example, let's find each of the following. So if I look at number 1 and I want to find the fourth root of 16, then I can use that idea here. So I can ask myself, what times itself 4 times is 16? Okay, that's what you're asking. So what number times itself 4 times is 16? All right, well, that's not a difficult one. You know that the answer is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, so that's 2. So the fourth root of 16 is 2. Okay, because 2 to the fourth is 16. All right, what about this though? So remember in a previous lesson we looked at the square root of, let's say, negative 16, and we saw that that was not a real number, right? And we knew this was not a real number because no number squared is never so a number squared is never negative, right? Well, what about number 2, the fourth root of a negative 16? What about that one? What do you think? So is there, so the question is there a real number raised to the fourth power that's a negative 16? Does that exist? You may say, well, what about negative 2? All right, well, let's think about that. What is a negative 2 to the fourth power? Well, negative 2 to the fourth power means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then a negative 2 times a negative 2 is 4, correct? 4 times a negative 2 is negative 8. And then negative 8 times this negative 2 is a positive 16. So a negative 2 raised to the fourth power is a positive 16. So that's not equal to negative 2. And it's not equal to 2 either because 2 raised to an even power, 2 raised to any power is always positive. So if the square root of negative 16 is not a real number, then what do you think about this? Well, that's not a real number either. So that's not a real number. So when we talked about cube roots, we saw that we can take the cube root of a negative number, couldn't we? And so for a square root of a negative number, we know that's not a real number. For the fourth root of a negative number, we know that's not a real number. So we can probably generalize and say that if the index is even, if the index is even, okay, remember the index, what that looks like, that's this number here, 4th root, 5th root, 6th root, 7th root, and so on. So the index is even, like, and what I mean by that is like square root, 4th root, 6th root, 8th root, and so on, right? That's what I mean. So the index is even. The radicand must be non-negative. Must be non-negative, which means non-negative means positive or 0. So non-negative means it cannot be negative for the root to be a real number. Okay? So look, my index is even, my radicand's negative, so that's not going to be a real number. All right? Okay, so let's look at number 3. All right, what about this one? What about negative 4th root of 256? Negative 4th root of 256. Is that a real number? Yes or no? Is this a real number? Yeah, because the radicand's what kind of number? It's positive. Now my answer is going to be negative because this says I'm going to take the negative 4th root here, so the answer will be negative, but it's still a real number because 256 is positive. And I just got to use the calculator and kind of figure out what times itself 4 times is 256. So on your calculator, let's just use this button. Don't use the 4th root button. We're going to do that in a little while with an approximation. But 256, let's try 7. 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. Oh, too big, right? So let's try 4. 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. There we go. 256. So the answer is 4. So that's going to equal negative 4, correct? Negative 4. All right. Now, notice what I just found. I found that the 4th root of 256 is is positive 4, right? This part here, this part. And we know that because 4 to the 4th power is 256. That's what I know. And so therefore, if that's 4, then this right here means the opposite of 4, or a negative 4. Okay? All right, number 4. Let's suppose number 4, I had this for number 4. All right, we have the 5th root of 32. The 5th root of 32. So I'm asking, what times itself 5 times is 32? That's what I'm asking. So what times itself 5 times is 32? All right, well, try some numbers, just like we did here. So let's try 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 32, right? So there it is. Now, you know how I kept doing 2 times 2 all those times? Now, this could get pretty long, right? So here's what you can do. You see, you want to raise 2 to the 5th. So you're going to say 2. You see this right here? That's your exponent button right here. So raise, see what that looks like? And then the 5th, and then press equal, and you get 32. Okay, I could have done the same thing with 4 right here. So you could say 4 raised to the, what was it, 4? 4, and you get 256. All right, so this right here could stands for your exponent. All right. Okay. Now, so I know this is a 2, so the answer is 2. That's the answer. Okay, number 5. Let's suppose number 5, I have the 5th root of negative 32. Now, before I go on, I'm going to ask you, is this a real number or not a real number? So, in other words, can I take the 5th root of negative 32? Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. The answer will be negative. So it's just that you cannot take the even root of a negative number, but you can take the odd root of a negative number. So if the index is a 3, if the index is a 5, a 7, it does not matter if that's negative. It's going to be a real number. And so basically you ask yourself, what times itself 5 times is negative 32? Well, if 2 to the 5th was 32, what do you think goes here? Negative 2. Because negative 2 to the 5th is 32. You can always check. Watch. Put that in parentheses, though. Negative 2 raised to the 5th equals negative 32. Okay? So that's going to be negative 32. All right. Number 6. What if you had this? The opposite, remember what it stands for, the opposite of the 5th root of negative 32. So we already found this part right here, right? We already found that part. That's oops, I didn't mean this to be negative 32. This was what answer here, negative 2. So we already found that part. That's negative 2, correct? And so remember what that means? This means the opposite of a negative 2. So what's the opposite of a negative 2? Positive 2. All right, number 7. What is the 5th root of 243? The 5th root of 243. Okay, well, let's try something. Let's try 3 to the 5th. And 3's not yet, but let's try 3 to the 5th. So we're going to say 3, and let's actually use this. 3 raised to the 5th equal 240. Oh, there it is. It is 3. It's 3. So right away, 3, right? Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and actually use the 5th root button, just to show you how to use it. So remember a while ago we said cube root, and so when we say cube root, we press 3, and then we press second, and then this button here, that would make cube root, right? Okay, so this is 5th root, correct? So instead of pressing 3, what are you going to press? You're going to press 5 first. So the 5th root, so to get to that root button here, you're going to say second, and then there's going to raise that exponent right here, and that means 5th root. And if I do 243 and press equal, you get 3. Okay? All right, number 8, we have the 6th root of 1. And that's easy because you remember the nth root of 1 is always going to be what? 1. All right, because 1 raised to any power, 1 raised to any power is always 1. Okay, number 9, the 6th root of negative 28. What do you think? 6th root of negative 28. Yeah, it's not a real number. Not a real number. And remember, when we did the square root, you can check it. Let's do the 6th root of negative 28 just to show you. So 6, then second, press this, and so that's 6th root right here. You need parentheses because that's a negative. So you're going to put parentheses, then negative, what was it, 28? Close the parentheses, and remember you're going to get that error. There's that error, okay? So it's not a real number. So remember, you cannot take the even root. That's an even root of a negative number. You cannot take the even root of a negative number. Number 10, the 4th root of 81. So what times itself 4 times is 81, do you think? All right, you want to try 3? Let's try 3. So 3 raised to the 4th equals 81. That's it. So the answer is 3. Because 3 to the 4th is 81. Okay? And then let's do the approximations now. So let's approximate to the nearest thousandth. Okay, so approximate the nearest thousandth. And let's say we had, this is number 1 for that part. The 4th root of 265. Okay? And so it's asking you to approximate, so go ahead and use your calculator. Remember, the thousandths place, the nearest thousandths, means 3 decimal places. So remember, you're saying 4th root, so you got to press 4 first for your index. So put your index in first, then second, and then press this button, and see you get that x root right here, and then 265, and then press equal, and you get this. Now remember, you want to round to nearest thousand, so this is the tenths place, hundredths, thousandths. So since this is 5 or greater, the 4 becomes 1. I'm sorry, you add 1 to the 4, and the 4 becomes 5. So 4.035. So 4.035. Remember, the symbol for approximation looks like this, okay? It's not an equal sign. That's the symbol for approximation. Number 2, you have the fifth root of 143. So same thing. So let's approximate this. So your index is 5, so do the index first, then second root. Okay, so that's fifth root now. And then 143, press equal, and you get, all right, so let's see, the nearest thousand, so this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So then since this one is less than 5, the 8 stays 8. So 2.698. So approximately go to 2.698. Okay. And let me just make sure, I think that's all I want to talk about with this. Okay. So this was the lesson on nth roots. So we've talked about square roots, we talked about cube roots, and now we talked about nth roots. Okay? All right, so that's going to be the end of this lesson.